Hey there, I'm MIKEYLA PITÖRSÖN. Welcome to my channel. You guys may have noticed that I look slightly different. It's because I fixed the focal length on my cameras. Technically, my husband did, and now I look less like a fish. This is what I actually look like. Anyway, I'm coming up on 5 years on the lion diet. Can you believe that? 5 years of only eating beef, lamb, bison, salt and water with the occasional vodka/bourbon. I'll get into that later. As many of you guys know, I came across this diet out of desperation when I had come off of psychiatric medications trying to get my depression under control and my juvenile idiopathic arthritis that left me with a hip and ankle replacement at 17 under control because the medical system was not doing it for me. So I stopped taking all my medication after I went on the paleo diet when I was 23, very restrictive paleo diet, no nuts, dairy, eggs, very limited fruit, mostly meat and greens. That got rid of all my symptoms until I came off of psychiatric medications way too quickly. I cold turkey stopped taking antidepressants after being medicated from the age of 12 to 23. That was horrific. I didn't even know I was an antidepressant withdrawal for a number of years until my dad experienced the same thing. And that's what led me to the lion diet. And I've been on the lion diet since December 2017 to keep my autoimmune disorder under control, in remission. I do not take any medication and I have no arthritic symptoms, and to keep my psychiatric conditions in remission, because I was extremely depressed. I had OCD symptoms, was diagnosed with bipolar, and I was on a lot of different medications, and I was absolutely miserable. And I'm medication free, no longer an antidepressant withdrawal, and I attribute almost all of my success to the lion diet. So if people are interested in it, I have a ton of free information up at liondiet.com. I have recipes. You can kind of look into my blog to see how I got to where I am now. I have an FAQ, a very extensive FAQ on there to help people start the diet. I also have a couple of Facebook groups, Don't Eat That, for kind of elimination diets, health-minded people, and the lion diet for people who are specifically on this diet, who need a group of people who aren't going to judge them while they're doing all beef, all lamb, all bison, which can elicit some strange stares and remarks. Anyway, I'm gonna do a Q&A because I thought, why not? It's been 5 years. Does the quality of meat affect your body? i.e., does it need to be grass-fed/organic? I do not eat grass-fed meat very often. I don't really like how it tastes compared to not grass-fed meat. What I don't eat is aged meat. Aged meat gives me digestive problems. If I eat aged meat, my stomach hurts almost 15 or 20 minutes after eating it. I've got a very sensitive digestion, but histamine intolerance is something that's fairly common on a carnivorous diet. And histamine intolerance is when you react basically to aged meat. That's a very simplified way, but that's how I'm going to describe it. So I eat lamb and bison, which are generally lower in histamine and aren't aged as long. And I eat beef from Better Fed, whom I love. That's mostly where I get my meat. And then White Oak Pastures has unaged beef, and so does Billy Doe. So if you start the carnivore diet and you're having like urgency issues or bloating after you eat meat, it could be because your body doesn't like aged meat. So I tell everyone to eat unaged meat, at least at the beginning. So lamb and bison, you're pretty much good at the grocery store, and beef, you have to go searching for it from the companies that I just mentioned. Everything electrolytes. How to move fully into lion, avoiding electrolyte imbalance/cramps. So when I started the diet, I just went to beef and salt and water, and I didn't know anything about electrolytes. I was trying to eliminate any variable that could be causing autoimmunity. And so I suffered fairly badly from electrolyte imbalances. Around month 5, I started waking up at night because my calf was cramping. And calf cramps, they hurt a lot. And I was too worried about introducing anything because of these massive autoimmune reactions I would have to food, or to even pills or medication, just anything, that I just dealt with it. Almost a year into the lion diet, I realized that sodium, potassium, magnesium levels, especially at the beginning of the diet, are super important. I found I needed a lot of sodium, about a third potassium, and less magnesium than that. Some people need more potassium. You kind of have to play around with it. I would say just add salt at the beginning, a lot of salt to your diet, and then if the cramps come, start playing around by adding in potassium and adding in magnesium. And unfortunately, it's pretty different per person. I tried like a third potassium. That's kind of what worked for me. So you can try that. But even without electrolytes, the muscle cramps and electrolyte imbalances do go away. You don't need these electrolytes forever, but at the beginning of the diet, it really, really, really does help. Do you ever crave sweets like fruit, mango, pineapples, and berries? No, I don't really get cravings anymore. I have managed to reintroduce wild fish. I don't eat wild fish very often because I seem to just be hungry after I eat it. But it's nice to be able to go out to a restaurant and order sashimi. I can eat a little bit of honey, so that's exciting. Have I managed to introduce anything else, like fruit? Absolutely not. I still get autoimmune symptoms if I introduce fruit. I get autoimmune symptoms if I eat chicken. Pork is even worse. I cannot tolerate pork at all. I have a worse reaction to pork than I do to some fruit. Like, I'd rather be eating apples than eating pork. How severe are your symptoms if you eat only a little outside of your all-meat diet? It's totally dependent on the food. If I had something containing gluten, very severe. If I have something containing soy, like I was on tour with Dad earlier this year, and we went out for lamb, and they cooked the lamb with olive oil, but the olive oil was like 70% soybean oil. Tons of restaurants cheap out and they cut their olive oil with 70% soybean oil. It's disgusting. And they call it olive oil. You're still allowed to call it olive oil. Be careful of your olive oils, guy. Anyway, I had some of the lamb and I was like, oh, okay, this tastes a little weird, because you can taste everything if all you eat is meat for 5 years. You can, like, if there's a pepper flake on my lamb, like, that's pepper. I don't eat spice. I know what spice tastes like. Anyway, I had a pretty bad reaction to just a couple of lollipop pieces of lamb that had soybean oil on them, but I'm almost deathly allergic to soy, so that's not that surprising. I was sick for about a week. I cried the next day. I felt horrible. I had this overwhelming sense of doom and it makes me weepy and my joints hurt and my skin broke out, and it lasted for about a week. Now, last week, I tried to reintroduce these sausages that are like fresh beef, fat, salt sausages. They were so good, but about 5 days into eating them, I started not to feel so good and I realized they were smoked. So I can't do smoked meat at all. Yeah, I don't know how to explain these things, guys. I don't know, but I can't do smoked meat. So then my skin broke out a little bit. I'm feeling better. That only lasted about 36 or 48 hours. So it was only like 2 days. So my reactions seem to last from 2 days to a week if they're severe, and about 2 days for normal ones. That's really not that bad. That's not catastrophic. When I first started the diet, when I went off of psych meds and I was in psych med withdrawal, I had horrifying reactions that would last for an entire month. And they would get worse for 10 days after I stopped eating the food that I was eating. I couldn't believe it. I kept track of my symptoms in a book because I thought I was crazy. It'd just get worse and worse and worse. And I attribute that, now that I know, to psych med withdrawal. I thought that I just had hypersensitivity to carbs because of my autoimmunity, but it was definitely combined with psych med withdrawal. And there are stories all over the internet about people experiencing psych med withdrawal symptoms that I had, which was like hallucinations, feeling of falling, overwhelming sense of doom. I couldn't see colors very well. I couldn't sleep. It was horrible. I don't even want to get into psych meds. That's a whole other video. But now my reactions are they're not pleasant. The 36 hours even after having the smoked sausages was not pleasant at all. I think I cried once. And I'm not a crier. I think I cried once. But then it went away in 48 hours. That's not so bad. It's not as scary as a month. Ooh, okay. Can you do a what I eat in a day? Okay, what do I eat in a day? So this morning I had cold ribs from last night, and I'm gonna have crunchy things this evening. And crunchy things, this is a recipe I came up with. You get pretty creative, I guess, if you've only been eating meat for a number of years. I came up with this recipe. You can take any cut of beef or lamb, any cut of meat, as long as it's not ground meat. So any cut of meat that isn't ground meat, and pressure cook it until you can shred it into bits, and then pour all those shredded bits, without the water obviously, into an air fryer. Add tallow, which is beef fat. So add some sort of fat, and then air fry it with salt, and you get shredded crunchy things that are just God's greatest gift. And if you haven't had them, you might scoff at it, but you would be wrong, and you should try them. Those kind of recipes are available for free on liondiet.com. I would just only eat crunchy things for my entire life. Yeah, I also sometimes eat jerky. So I'd say the average day is either a steak around noon and another steak at around 5 p.m. or leftover ribs and crunchy things. A year ago, my average day looked like lamb sausage, and that's just lamb and salt. A lamb sausage in the morning, and then I just ate jerky for the rest of the day. So just a lamb sausage jerky diet. I love jerky. People are like, well, you just eat just beef for breakfast? Like either no breakfast or yes, or lamb. Dinner, beef or lamb. Lunch, beef or lamb. Sometimes bison is thrown in there. Sometimes I get wild and eat crunchy things, but it's all beef or lamb or salt. Jordan Peterson, my dad, his average day is like steak, strip loin steak, strip loin steak, strip loin steak. He's a lot too. He probably eats 3.5 or 4 pounds of meat a day. He's a beast. So just steaks, but I definitely recommend eating crunchy bits. Crunchy things. Crunchy things is probably a better name. Crunchy things. Is it possible for someone who has a normal income to do this diet? Meat is expensive, is it not? And what about travel? Okay, multi-part question. So it's totally possible to do this on a very low budget. It can be way cheaper than eating the standard American diet. What you want to do is you want to go to a butcher or go to your meat department and just buy the cheap cuts. Doesn't matter what they are. Buy the cheap cuts. You could survive off of tongue if you needed to. That's dirt cheap. And if you go to my handy website, liondiet.com, there is a recipe for crunchy things, and you can literally make the most garbage cuts into delicious crispy things by adding fat. So you can buy fat from a butcher. Fat is really cheap. They commonly cut fat off of cuts and throw it away. So make friends with a butcher, buy fat, buy the cheap cuts. You can do heart too. You can do organs. Like heart it's a muscle, and tongue is a muscle. So that's still muscle meat, basically. Get the cheap cuts, add fat, get a pressure cooker and an air fryer, and you're set, okay? And the pressure cooker and air fryer are an upfront expense at the beginning of the diet. They will save you so much time, and they'll make your food so good. It's really worth investing into them. But you don't have to have a bunch of money to do this diet. It can be very cheap, and it makes you healthier. You should do it, especially if you're sick. Travel, okay. Because I have histamine intolerance and I can't eat aged meat, travel's a bit tricky because going out to restaurants and eating steak isn't an option because steak is always aged at restaurants. So I can either go out and eat lamb. That's insanely expensive. Now, generally speaking, I literally take an air fryer, Ninja XXL, sponsor me, put it in a suitcase, put it under the plane, and air fry at the Airbnb. That's usually what I do. It's not super glamorous. I've also been known with my husband to just pack a bunch of frozen meat in a suitcase and bring it with me with my air fryer. You're like, what? That's not fun. Like, yeah, but you know what's less fun? Having an autoimmune disorder and being crazy. That's way less fun. Can you take supplements or do they activate your AI disease? I kind of like that. Activate your AI disease. Can I take supplements? No. So I can take unflavored electrolytes, which is why I'm making a version for people that's just sodium, potassium, magnesium, and nothing else. And if I'm fasting or even intermittent fasting, that makes me feel better. There's one other thing I can take, barely. I've tried, do you ever go off the Lion diet? So no, never, ever, ever. And I never cheat because nothing tastes as good as being healthy feels. And the repercussions for cheating for me are so severe and so quick that it's just not worth it. Like, would you eat peanuts if you really like peanuts if you had a peanut allergy? What if you really liked peanut butter? It's like asking that kind of question. It's like, well, what if you really like fruit? Yeah, but I get arthritis and my skin breaks out and then I cry all the time. No fruit tastes that good. Theoretically, this helps or eliminates 80% of people's environmental allergies. Everybody should know about this stuff. They used to do allergy desensitization in shots, and you had to go into the doctor's office multiple times a week and get shots. And now they have sublingual drops, and they've shown this to help people with, say, peanut allergies, because kids will like die from these things. They'll hop on a plane, they'll have a peanut allergy reaction, and they'll die. This has happened. And they're starting to do this sublingual immunotherapy for. Were you pregnant or nursing on this diet? Yes, I had a miserable pregnancy. I was horribly depressed the entire time. I don't know if it was from the hormones or the antidepressant withdrawal or both. I went on the diet 5 months into nursing when Scarlett was still nursing full time. She hadn't introduced any foods. And I switched over into the diet. I got more milk. Scarlett's cradle cap went away. Obviously, I got better. That improved things. So yes, and there are people, Kelly Hogan, she has hordes of children, and she's on a carnivore diet. She's not on the Lion diet exactly. She eats a little bit more than that, but she's on a carnivore diet and has lots of kids. So there are people out there that do this. Charlene Anderson, she used an all beef diet for Lyme disease. She has multiple children that are also on the diet. So yes, if you have postpartum depression, I know a couple of people on the diet that it's helped postpartum depression a lot. So I'd say give it a shot. No use living depressed. There's nothing worse than that. You know? I know when you're depressed, you think, oh, how could I go on a diet? The only pleasure I have is from food. Just do the diet. Don't live depressed, especially if you've lived depressed for like a decade or that's been your life forever. That's so sad. Part of the reason I talk about this stupid diet is because it's completely saved my life. It saved my dad's life. It saved my mom's life. My mom had really bad arthritis and a whole bunch of other issues. She thinks she would be dead without the diet. She almost died anyway. My dad would be dead 100% without the diet. He needed it for psych med withdrawal and autoimmunity. And it's just, there's nothing as bad as mental health problems. And I think a lot of them are exacerbated by the psych meds that people are taking. They're so dangerous and people don't understand withdrawal or how dangerous they are. I've seen this diet help tons of people. And so if you're thinking about doing it and you're depressed, do it for 6 weeks. It's not that long. Do it for 6 weeks and then decide if you want to keep doing it at the 6-week part. It's not that long. Okay, it's a lot less long than spending the rest of your life depressed. Why is it that eating the lion diet cures what you were struggling with? So this is just a guess because everything about most diets nowadays is just a guess. But I think I had leaky gut. So I think my gut was damaged partially from having celiac disease and partially from eating gut damaging foods. And food was escaping into my blood, like bacteria into that food. And those antibody antigen complexes were building up in my tissues and giving me arthritis. I think that's what was giving me autoimmunity. And I know that it's been shown paleomedicina in Hungary, might be Medicina, paleomedicina, they've showed that putting people on an all ruminant meat diet stops gut permeability issues. It will seal your gut. So that's part of it, at least, is if you only eat ruminant meat, you can heal gut damage. So that's part of it. And then the other part of it, I think I'm actually allergic to plants. I'm allergic to environmental plants. I'm allergic to grass. I'm allergic to grass and trees and like flowers and weeds and everything outdoors. Why wouldn't I be allergic to plants as well? It's not just from removing processed foods. A lot of people look at the diet and they're like, well, if you had just removed processed foods, you'd be fine. And I did do that. I did that first because that's more obvious. I removed everything I thought I could be allergic to: nuts, eggs, dairy, all processed foods, grains, and went down to like meat and greens and fruit. I did that to begin with, and then I stopped taking antidepressants and I went off of all my medications and I got pregnant and that stopped working, okay? So then I went to meat and lettuce. I was just eating meat and lettuce and apple cider vinegar and olive oil, not olive oil cut with soybean oil, just pure olive oil. And that was giving me an autoimmune disorder. It wasn't until I dropped the literally lettuce, apple cider vinegar, olive oil, and went to the lion diet that my arthritis went away and my mood improved. So it's not from cutting processed foods, it's more than that. Anyway, I have theories about why it works, gut permeability issues. But I hope that if you're sick, you give it a shot. I've tried to put everything I can for free on liondiet.com. It's been 5 years and here I am without scurvy. And yeah, I'm gonna go do a podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. And if you need a reason to try the diet, do it. Just try it for 6 weeks. Join my Facebook group. People in there are nice. They will be nice to you. They'll help walk you through it, and everything's free. I hope this Q&A was helpful. I'll do another one at some point. I hope everyone's feeling good.